Hi, this is Libby Mitchell, and this is my topical presentation for the ethics class for Professor Prettyman, and we'll be discussing if programmers and IT professionals should be professionally licensed. It has been proposed several times over recent years, in fact, going back all the way to the 90s, that professionals in the software development field be required to be licensed. They've come up with this for a lot of reasons. They think it would unify standards and improve ethics. It would require some training, exams, going over ethical requirements again, and also any other additional training needed for potential engineers to receive before they could be licensed. The reason they want to do this is, again, to improve standards and also make sure that there's ongoing education in the field. In fact, a lot of fields that you don't even think about do require licensing. You got lawyers, plumbers, pilots, teachers. We all require these people to know these things, to have these licenses in place before we even let them work on what they're working on. And the law still hasn't caught up with regulations for computers. And we're kind of asking, is it a necessity or is it just too much to ask? What they have tried in the past, there have been several attempts to bring in some legitimacy to candidates. You've got your Oracle certifications, Microsoft certified system engineers, Cisco, you've got the networking, you've got the A+ certification. I actually have one of those. It's none of them are required to work right now. You can get them without any formal work experience, has no governmental backing. They're actually pretty easy to get to. Usually you pay a fee, and I know for a fact when I did the A+ certification, as long as you passed, it didn't matter how badly you passed by the skin of your teeth. I know some people who got the exact number they needed to pass. You were able to say you're A+ certified, and that's usually a huge mark on your resume, and it can be deceiving because you may not really know what you're talking about, but you've got this really fancy certification that says, yeah, I'm this good, hire me. So you can see why this would be a problem for certain people. They're trying to hire the best people, and they've got these certifications that say they're good, but they don't have the experience to back it up. So we've got some pros now. With licensing, which would be government backed up, you would be able to ensure that everyone's skills are basically up to date. They would know the most recent information. They would have their ethics standards lined up. They know the most up-to-date security, and that does make it easier for hiring processes. A lot of times you have a hiring manager that has to go through all these steps, and they're just looking for certain certifications. They don't really know what it means. They've been told by somebody else, this is what you look for, and then they bring them in, and they find out that, no, this person really doesn't know anything, and it's just been a big waste of everyone's time. But if you do it the other way, with government backing, you actually know that, no, this person is what they claim they are. And everybody, when you go through a hiring process, everyone tends to kind of embellish their resumes a little bit, and that does make it harder. It would unify coding standards across the industry as well, which would make it easier to document and find professionals who can maintain the code. We do have a lot of problems right now with older legacy coding that nobody really knows what it is, and when those processes break, the people who worked on them are either retired or no longer with us, and it makes it hard for everyone to try to have to fix these problems. It would bring in background checks, employment history, prospective hires. You would be able to look at that and say, no, this person is who they say they are. And right now, a lot of companies have to go through really expensive background checks, which just raises costs. The government standards would make that a lot easier. And again, you don't have a huge training time that you have to go through and say, this is how we do this, this, and this. The person could come in and immediately start working once they know what the company's official policies are and everything. So there are some definite benefits to it. But of course, with positives, we have our negatives. Some would view this as an impeding on the negative right to work. Basically, I don't have a license, I can't work. That's not good. It would stifle creativity. If everyone's been trained to think the same way, you won't get that person who's kind of done something not up to industry standards, and you might not have some of the best solutions out there. And of course, if everybody is looking at the problem of coding the same way, guess what your hackers are going to do? They're going to learn how to do that, and they're going to look at for every single exploit they can. So it actually cause a decrease in security in that aspect. So you may not want to go that way. And unfortunately, this would also negatively impact those who are less privileged when growing up, because you go through school and then you have to have all these other tests on top of it, more schooling. So it could make it harder for them to find a job. Also, we've seen in other industries that licensing hasn't really stopped corruption. We hear all about it, lawyers who are using the law, they're kind of using loopholes to get around things. Doctors, heavily licensed. Some of them are engaging in Medicare fraud, health insurance fraud, things like that. Teachers, once again, licensed. But here in Georgia, we had a huge problem with people, most teachers kind of tweaking the tests so that their students looked like they were passing. Didn't really help with corruption. And again, licensing hasn't always been a very noble thing. It was originally in the plumbing industry used to prevent African Americans from getting jobs. I don't think that would be the case in this one. At least I hope that wouldn't be the case. But it's not as noble of a history as we think it is. And, well, here's the thing that some programmers would love, but other people might not. Salaries would be higher because you had to spend all this money just to get a license, but your quality may not really improve. If the tests aren't done correctly, you would have another situation where, very similar to the A+, the Microsoft certifications, somebody can just go out and get it. They don't have any experience, and now you got to pay them an even higher salary, and they still don't know what they're doing. And human error. You're going to have all this licensing, all these checks in place. People are still going to make mistakes. Sometimes, even though you try your best, sometimes you just leave an exploit wide open and somebody walks in and, you left the key in the lock, they just let themselves in. So it does happen. It would not prevent that 100%. You would probably see a slight reduction, but not as huge as they're going for. So in summary, I do think this day is coming because computers really are becoming a huge part of our lives. We have so much data out there. We do have, we're just about connected everywhere. So you do need to have some standards in place. Security definitely needs to be standardized, but again, you want to have some of that out of the box thinking to prevent exploits from getting out. But it's really, what are we going for here? Are we just trying to make the hiring process easier? Well, then yes, certifications, licensing, that would be a huge plus. But if we're trying to get rid of corruption, mistakes, and exploits, this is not going to be the surefire way to do it. Just mistakes are going to happen. People are involved, and even though they don't mean it, mistakes do happen. So it's really, what is the goal with licensing, and what are we trying to do with it? And these are my sources. It's everything we looked at. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.